and we are here today with Amanda Madden from Titleosity. Today we're going to be talking about deeds. We've talked about trust before, we talked about title process, now we're going to talk about deeds. We're talking about the most popular, QuitClaim, because that seems to be a question that comes up a lot. And at some point down along the line, we'll talk about Amanda's favorite, which is, you say it.
Ladybird deed.
Yes.
I just like the name. It's actually a very functional deed, but it's got the most fun name for a deed.
She likes the way it rolls off of her lips.
Ladybird.
Yes. So anyway, without further ado, this is Amanda Madden, and we'll go ahead and jump right into it. So,
Thank you.
QuitClaim deeds. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and then slide into the QuitClaim.
Okay. Thank you so much, Edna, for inviting me. I'm excited to be here. My name's Amanda Madden. I've been in title business, worked for title insurance companies for about 24, 25 years now. It's a passion. It's what I love to do. It's what I'm good at. And it's a major part of my life, definitely part of who I am, is what I do. So if you're lucky enough to have that as a job in life, I think you're pretty lucky. Today we're going to talk about QuitClaim deeds. Edna asked me to come here and join her to share with you guys a little bit about deeds in general, but specifically QuitClaim deeds, which tend to be the first thing people think of when they think of a deed to solve any and all title issues or problems.
One size fits all deed is what it should be called.
Pretty much, yeah, the general deed. QuitClaim deed, Q-U-I-T, claim deed. Some people think that it is a quick, fast claim deed. It's not.
Right.
But it can be used for many different things. It's not the cure-all. It's not the end-all, be-all. It's not always the best way to transfer interest in a property, but it can be very useful. The most common way that we'll see a QuitClaim deed being used would be if I own a property, I'm a single woman, I own a property as a single woman, and then I get married and my husband, moves in, and now we're sharing the property as our primary residence. And at some point we decide that it makes sense for me to deed him onto the property so that we hold property as husband and wife. So QuitClaim deed in that case would be a perfect example of what you would want to do to make that easy transfer from yourself as a single person to yourself and a spouse or partner, either as husband and wife, or as a married couple, or even if you choose not to get into a legally binding contract such as marriage. If it's a life partner or somebody you've been with for many years, and you're sharing property, you're sharing bills and stuff like that, you could use a QuitClaim deed to also add that person on title to share in the ownership of the property.
Now that means share the ownership, but not the mortgage. The mortgage is still in the original mortgage holder's name. So when you go to sell, your spouse or the person you added to QuitClaim deed, they have to sign because they're on the deed. However, they're not on the mortgage. The side effect of that is I've had clients who QuitClaim deed someone onto a property they own, which was not their spouse, and so there was a break in the relationship, and then that person disappeared, and so now the person who originally owned the property wants to sell it, and you can't find that person to sign off.
Exactly.
And that unfortunately did happen to a past client of mine.
Yeah.
So
that's a good example. Obviously, we always want to be mindful of what we're doing with our property or any asset, really. But to think that you have to think it all the way through, right? That if I add this person, there's a benefit to that, but there's also going to be a possible issue if there's a breakdown of the relationship and they decide to leave town, they move to Texas or they move to Washington State or something, and you are no longer in contact with them. They can essentially kind of hold that sale hostage. They can even unknowingly or unwillingly prevent the sale by the simple fact that you don't have a way to contact them for them to sign off on their interest. Also, another problem is, say you do know where they are and you can contact them, and you tell them you're selling the property that they have an interest in. Now possibly they're going to say that they need some money. They are maybe expecting that they're due some kind of proceeds of that sale based on what they contributed to the household. Did they help make mortgage payments? Did they help make tax payments? Stuff like that. So that's something you really need to be mindful of. To kind of tag on to that example, Edna, I've seen this happen more than a few times, but very recently we had a couple, husband and wife, who got some not great legal advice from an attorney who wasn't a real estate attorney. So sidebar, always if you're asking for legal advice from an attorney, make sure it's a real estate attorney who has experience in real estate law in the state that you're located in. But got some not great advice from a real estate attorney, and the advice was that they were going to deed to themselves as husband and wife and their 3 children. And they held title as what's called joint tenants with full rights of survivorship. So they used a QuitClaim deed. And they took themselves as husband and wife. They deeded on to themselves as husband and wife to 1, 2, 3, their children as joint tenants, meaning everybody now has an equal interest in that property. So fast forward 5, 10 years, they're doing this for estate planning purposes. They're doing this. They think they're doing this to prevent probate. When and if one and then the second, both of them shall pass.
Right.
The property then would automatically go to the 3 children, the 3 heirs. The problem is, 10 years later, nobody's passed, and they now want to sell the property. And one of their children is in the middle of a very messy divorce, holding up the sale of their property. The other child has recently filed bankruptcy. Okay, now we need approval from the bankruptcy courts and the trustees of the bankruptcy to allow the sale of that property. A fifth of that property could be considered as assets of the person in bankruptcy. The third person maybe is in jail. Is it either incarcerated or is deceased or something? Deceased is the least of your problems because you just need a death certificate. When someone's incarcerated, we can get documents signed. It's just a whole lot more. So QuitClaim Deed to add on people that you are not married to or in a very serious committed relationship with is a dangerous endeavor. But QuitClaim deeds can be very useful, just not always the best way to protect yourself and to protect your own interest in the property.
Now, unbeknownst to Amanda, my last conversation was with a trust manager at a bank, and we talked about trust, and that was almost identical example that she gave about QuitClaim Deed, but the reason why you may want to consider a trust and the different types of trust that there are. And that would be one that would probably come in handy to talk to an estate attorney, which is different from a real estate attorney. It's kind of like an eye doctor and an ear doctor. Yep, they're both doctors, but they don't operate the same.
Right, exactly.
So you need to make sure you go to the appropriate professional for whatever that issue may be. But unfortunately, there are professionals that give bad advice.
Sure.
I've seen, as she stated, where they QuitClaim the whole family on a deed, thinking that they were saving themselves from going to probate in the event the actual owner of the property passed. But you can't guarantee that at some point that if the person did pass and now the other ones that were on there decided to sell the property and divvy it up, that they're all going to be sane at the time and they're all going to be, jail-free.
Alive and well.
And not have any drama.
Yeah.
That they don't have federal liens, tax liens out there.
Great point.
All those things I've seen come against clients when they're trying to sell. And, oh, by the way, I have a $100,000 federal tax lien. Do I have to pay that off?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're talking about government now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to need their money.
Yes. Yeah. So, as she said, QuitClaim is not the one-size-fits-all deed. However, most people want it to be. But
it's just so easy.
It's easy, but
it's fast, it's easy. And what we know about things that are cheap and easy is not always do you get the value behind it.
Yeah, and so get the proper advice from professionals. Talk to several, to feel comfortable with, get some referrals, but don't just think that that's the easy out because you have to think about the end effect. That pebble in the water ripple, and what happens when it gets out to the furthest point, you don't want to find out at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I'll say too that there's, for as many reasons not to use a QuitClaim deed, there are more reasons than we've already talked about today to use a QuitClaim deed, or reasons where, instances or scenarios where a QuitClaim deed makes the most sense. But it's more so looking kind of down the road and thinking to yourself or talking it out with professionals, talking it out with other people who've maybe had the same experience in the past. what could possibly happen. Let's look out into the future and say, what could be an issue that we might have to deal with down the road. It doesn't seem like it could be a problem right now, but could definitely propose an issue for you in selling your property. I think the trust is a great idea. And that's kind of going outside of what we're talking about here, but there's other kinds of deeds as well. So I know we're not going to go deep into the Ladybird deed,
Yay,
but I have to, yes, I just love it so much. It makes sense for a lot of people, okay? So if you don't have a tremendous amount of things that you would need to have handled by a trust, or if you don't have a tremendous amount, or not even tremendous, that's probably the wrong word, but if you have your house, okay, and that's what you have, that's your assets, right? You own a car, of course, we all have possessions, but if you have one house and, your concern is that for estate planning purposes, you want to make sure that nobody has to deal with, any kind of probate or any kind of trouble or problems after you're no longer here. Does it make sense to put that property into a trust? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't for one piece of property. It makes sense to have a whole trust. Maybe that's going to cost you a lot of money on the front end for an attorney, and really the only value being brought would be that the trust can then sell the property. Maybe that doesn't make sense. If you have enough assets to warrant a trust, great. If you don't, and you just really have this one property or something like that, a Ladybird deed makes a little bit of sense. Now, I could record a Ladybird deed from myself to my son if I pass. And there's some special verbiage and some special language that's put into a Ladybird deed that basically means I'm deeding to myself and my son. The property is mine and mine alone to convey for my lifetime. If 5 years after I do a Ladybird deed, I decide to sell that property, my son doesn't have to sign anything. I'm within my rights that are afforded to me in that deed to sell that property by myself, okay? And any interest that he may have received upon my death is null and void. Conversely, if I did a Ladybird deed to myself for my lifetime to convey, and upon my death it transfers to my son, that's an automatic transfer, meaning if I shall pass, that deed's already been recorded, so there's no question about who owns the property. He automatically owns the property without any further action on his part. So he would be able to sell the property himself. I won't get into taxes, but that's maybe a second episode.
Yeah.
There's different reasons why that makes sense versus a trust or versus a quitclaim deed where you're going to hold title as joint tenants.
It helps avoid probate as well.
Yep, helps avoid probate.
Because probate will chew up any equity you have in the property.
Pretty much, yeah.
So
yeah, unless you get like a really, really good attorney who, and the sun, the moon, the stars all align, it can be a nightmare. It can be a big headache for the whole family.
It does take time.
Absolutely.
I don't think I've seen one yet that didn't take several months.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, you see sometimes agents list properties and it'll say contingent upon, release from probate court. It means that either they're waiting to get an offer before they start that process, or they've started it and they're still waiting.
Right.
I've seen it take months.
Oh yeah, especially right now.
Oh,
delayed.
This is COVID time,
COVID.
So everything is delayed because not everything is still fully open and people are still short for staff.
They're still not working, and yeah absolutely.
Yeah, so there's a lot of extra going on outside of the normal process that it takes.
Right. It's a long process in normal times, so only magnified by what we're dealing with now.
Yep.
For sure.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So COVID's added at least a year to everything.
For sure. Yeah.
I don't know. From what they're saying, it might be 2 years.
Oh God, I pray not. But
yeah, I know. It is what it is.
We were just getting there too with recording documents, recording deeds, quitclaim deeds, Ladybird deeds, any other kind of thing. We were getting really good at it here in Michigan. The process was sped up quite a bit by electronic recording, e-recording. Most counties in the state of Michigan now. Only a few outliers that haven't quite caught up yet, but the e-recording was going so well. It's like we were, oh goodness, We're recording faster, which means the title insurance company can get those recorded documents back to the client faster. And we can also issue our policy faster and a lot less headache from things being lost at the county or whatever. And now COVID is all the gifts from COVID, it's just more keep coming. So one more gift, one more lesson, an opportunity, right? This year is that the recording process is now slowed way down, as well as any kind of court process for sure.
So it's just testing our resolve. It's trying to live out Murphy's Law and to see just how much of Murphy's Law we can actually handle.
Yeah.
So when it's all over,
it's a good challenge.
And we look past, we will see that this won't happen again for another 100 years. As supposedly the last plague that made people walk around with masks and that crippled the economy.
So every 100 years, it seems. So, I guess what I think is interesting, if you're going to find some kind of takeaway, is that our grandkids will be reading about our lives at this time in school.
Yeah, definitely have to read the
Hopefully they're back to
now.
school by then.
Well, I think school will look different from now on. I think everything we do will look a little differently from now on.
I think so too.
Until maybe like 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, then they kind of
people get
settle into a certain normal.
Just in time for it to come back around.
Pretty much.
Good times.
Pretty much.
Good times.
So I think that's about all we can talk about.
I would continue to talk all day if you would let me. So, but no, I think that sounds pretty good. That was a good bit of information. A lot of information packed into a few minutes for sure, but
yes,
all good things.
Yes. So we'll have more as time goes on, and as I continue to have conversations, more subjects come up because it's just a lot more to always know. But my goal is always to share what I learned and get the information from the professionals, because I am a realtor and that's all I do is help people buy and sell homes. But I get that information to share with you so that you make a better decision for you and your family. And even though the deed information isn't necessarily something you need to buy and sell, but it's something you should be aware of, especially when closing and they want to know how you want that deed recorded. Just have a conversation and make sure that you know the end result of those possibilities for the decisions that you make. But we're always here, and I'm pretty sure we'll be back to talk about whatever our next subject comes up that we discover.
Wonderful. Thank you again for having me. This was so much fun.
I know it is.
I love it.
Me too.
Love Edna. The best. She says I'm only a real estate agent, as if she doesn't wear 100 hats every day.
Look who's talking.
A very hard job. Very hard job.
She couldn't fit her head into the building. It's outside.
Oh,
That's
my goodness.
How big it is.
Yeah, it's got its own parking spot today.
Well, actually, it's on the roof because with all the snow, it couldn't fit in any parking spot.
Oh, my goodness. Always fun. Always fun with you, Edna.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thanks again. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Have a good day. We'll see you next time.